The sun blazed down over Maplewood Park like a heat lamp turned on high. A lazy breeze swept through the trees, rustling the leaves just enough to make the day feel a little less like an oven. In the middle of the park, the old concrete skate area buzzed with life. Boards slapped the pavement, wheels clattered against curbs, and laughter echoed through the open air as a group of teens took turns pulling off tricks and cheering each other on. It was the kind of summer afternoon that felt endless, timeless even. Shirts stuck slightly to backs from sweat, energy drinks were passed around, and someone had a Bluetooth speaker pumping out some lo-fi beats to keep the rhythm going. The teens, 6 or 7 of them, had found their summer groove here. Most of them had been coming for weeks. It was their ritual. Every day after lunch they'd meet up, practice, talk trash, and record clips for TikTok. They weren't bothering anyone. In fact, they kept the area clean, moved aside for joggers, and didn't cause a fuss. This park was their haven, their stage. Then came her. Out of nowhere, a shrill voice sliced through the hum of summer. "Excuse me!" The music stopped. Conversations froze. Skateboards rolled to a slow stop as every head turned toward the pathway leading up to the park's edge, marching with brisk, almost military precision was a woman in her mid-50s, wearing a visor that barely covered her tightly pinned blonde hair. She sported a pair of oversized sunglasses, a sleeveless floral blouse, and white capris so clean they practically glowed. Her sandals clicked with authority as she stormed across the grass, dragging a tiny bug-eyed dog behind her. The leash sparkled obnoxiously in the sunlight, lined with pink rhinestones that matched the dog's collar. The dog, Pickles, according to the tag, was clearly not a fan of this mission, nervously skipping to avoid her owner's determined pace. The woman stopped just short of the edge of the skate area and stood with her hands on her hips like a general surveying a battlefield. She scanned the group like they were criminals. "I've had enough of this nonsense," she shouted, pointing at no one and everyone at the same time. "You kids are reckless. Someone is going to get seriously hurt out here." One of the teens, a lanky kid in a Nirvana tee, raised an eyebrow and looked around as if trying to figure out if she was talking to someone behind him. "We're just skating," he said, his voice cautious. "We're not doing anything wrong." Karen, as the teens would soon call her, was not having it. "You're disturbing the peace," she snapped. "That constant clattering, that noise. And don't get me started on the language I heard the other day. Absolutely disgraceful." Another teen, a girl with purple streaks in her hair, rolled her eyes. "We're literally in the skate park. This is where people skate." Karen ignored her. Instead, she stepped forward and pointed directly at a boy who couldn't have been older than 14. He was mid-sip of a Gatorade, frozen like a deer caught in headlights. "You. I saw you doing flips off that ledge. You could have broken your neck. What if a child had been walking by?" The boy slowly lowered the bottle. There are no little kids here," he mumbled. Karen scoffed, flailing her arms dramatically. "Well, there could be. This is a family park, and I will not stand by while this place is turned into some kind of stunt show." One of the teens, a short guy with thick glasses, tried to mediate. "Ma'am, we're all wearing helmets. We're being careful. Nobody's hurt. We're not trashing anything." Karen's face turned a deeper shade of red. "Don't call me ma'am. I'm not that old." Another teen snorted a laugh under his breath. Karen's eyes narrowed like she'd just spotted a mouse in her kitchen. "I've lived in this neighborhood for 20 years, she snapped. "I know the rules. This is a public space, which means you need to be respectful. There are noise ordinances." One of the older teens, probably about 17, with a calm demeanor and earbuds dangling around his neck, decided to de-escalate. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a crumpled juice pouch. "Want a Capri Sun?" he asked, offering it with a half-smile, trying to disarm her with some irony. Karen's mouth dropped open in shock, as though the offer was a personal insult. "Don't be fresh with me," she barked. I will be calling the homeowners association and maybe even the police. This is a safety hazard and a public nuisance. That's when the phones came out. It was almost instinct. Half the group pulled out their smartphones and started recording. Not because they were trying to antagonize her, but because, well, this was a full-blown Karen moment, and everyone knew those belonged on the internet. "Bro, this is totally going viral," whispered one of them, holding up his phone, just enough to frame her wild gesticulating. Karen caught sight of the red recording light and her eyes widened. "What are you doing?" "Don't film me! That's illegal!" "It's not," said the purple-haired girl calmly. "We're in a public place. There's no expectation of privacy." Karen, shaking with frustration, lunged toward the kid holding his phone. "Turn that off or I'll—" But that's when it happened. Right foot down, left foot forward. Wedge sandal hits uneven sidewalk. Her heel caught the edge of a raised slab, a casualty of years of tree root damage and city budget delays. Her forward motion kept going while her foot didn't. There was a gasp, one of those slow, drawn-out sounds like in a cartoon when a character teeters over a cliff edge. Her arms shot up. Pickles barked. Her iced coffee, venti, with extra whipped cream, flew from her hand in a perfect parabola. And then she went down. The world seemed to slow to a crawl. A flock of pigeons in the distance took off at the noise. The teens froze, watching in disbelief as the Karen who just moments ago stood tall and furious crumpled onto the grass in a flailing heap, her visor flying off her head and landing a few feet away, spinning like a dropped frisbee. And just like that, the park was silent again. Only now, the moment had taken on a completely different energy. There was a long, awkward pause after Karen hit the grass. The kind of silence where everyone's brain is trying to process what just happened while also trying not to be the first person to laugh. The teens stood frozen, some mid-step, some still holding their phones in the air. Even Pickles, the bossam, tiny dog, had stopped barking and looked back at his owner with what could only be described as deep judgment. Karen groaned from the ground. She wasn't hurt, at least not badly. Mostly just stunned, her pride scraped raw more than anything else. Her perfectly styled hair now had a few leaves stuck in it, and her white capris had a big green smudge on the side from the grass. Her sunglasses were slightly askew, and for the first time since her tirade began, she didn't look angry. She looked embarrassed. The teens didn't quite know how to react. One of the girls, the one with the purple streaks in her hair, took a cautious step forward. "Hey, are you okay?" she asked, trying hard to sound neutral, not mocking. Karen pushed herself up on one elbow and waved her off. I'm fine, she snapped, but the edge in her voice was dulled. Her eyes darted around, trying to assess the damage. Not just physical, but social. Phones were still pointed at her. She could practically hear the video titles being written. "Karen screams at skaters, immediately gets instant karma." Still lying on her side, she squinted up at the boy who'd offered her the Capri Sun earlier. "This sidewalk is dangerous," she muttered, as if trying to shift blame onto the concrete. The boy nodded, barely able to suppress a grin. "Yeah, we trip on it all the time." That got a few chuckles. Not loud, not mean, just the natural laughter that bubbles out when tension suddenly breaks. Karen groaned again and sat up fully, brushing grass off her arms. Pickles tugged at the leash, trying to wander off into the shade. "Do you need help?" one of the kids asked. It came out more sincere than Karen expected. There was no sarcasm in his tone, no mocking smile, just a flat offer of assistance. Karen looked at him for a moment, seemingly surprised by the gesture. "No," she said, almost sulkily, then hesitated. "Well, maybe just a hand." The kid reached out and helped pull her to her feet. She wobbled a little, once upright, adjusting her sunglasses and trying to salvage whatever dignity she could. Her visor was retrieved by one of the girls and handed back without a word. Now standing, she looked around at the group again, this time with slightly less fire in her eyes. "You all think this is funny, don't you?" she asked, more weary. then furious. There was a moment of honesty, a beat of silence before the tall kid with the Nirvana tee said, "Kind of." More laughter. Karen's lips tightened, but she didn't argue. Deep down, she knew how it looked. A woman yelling about danger and responsibility, only to immediately get taken out by a crack in the sidewalk like a cartoon villain slipping. On a banana peel? Yeah, it was funny. "Look," said the girl with purple hair, stepping forward. "We're not trying to cause trouble. We're just skating. It's not like we're tagging buildings or doing drugs or throwing stuff at cars. We're just hanging out." Karen looked at her. Really looked at her, like she was seeing her for the first time. She was probably 15 or 16, wearing ripped jeans and a tank top, but also holding a water bottle and wearing knee pads. She didn't look like a menace, just a teenager trying to enjoy summer. The boy who'd helped her up added, "You said it's a public park. That means it's for everyone, right? Including us." Karen didn't reply right away. She reached down and picked a leaf out of her hair, brushing herself off more carefully this time. She glanced at the cracked slab of sidewalk, then at the spilled coffee that had formed a sad little puddle on the grass. "All right," she finally muttered, straightening her shoulders. "Maybe I overreacted a bit." There were a few subtle nods. One of the kids said under their breath, "Just a bit." Karen pretended not to hear that. Instead, she tugged gently on Pickles' leash. The dog had finally settled into a sitting position and looked about ready for a nap. The energy shifted. Karen no longer stood as an enemy or antagonist, just a neighbor who had stepped into a moment, lost her cool, and got knocked down a peg, literally and figuratively. The teens didn't gloat. They didn't tease. They just sort of let her be human again. One of the quieter teens, a boy with headphones still hanging around his neck, stepped forward and pointed at the sidewalk. "Seriously, though, you should report that crack. That thing's taken out like 3 of us this summer." Karen gave him a look, half skeptical, half amused. "I'll consider it." She glanced down at her once immaculate outfit, now a mess of creases, smudges, and grass stains. "Well," she said with a sigh, "I think I've had enough excitement for one day." She turned to walk back toward the path, wobbling slightly in her heels. As she left, the teens watched her go in respectful silence, at least until she was far enough away. Then the boy with the phone said, "Yo, that was the wildest plot twist of the summer." The others broke into quiet laughter again. Someone added, "I still can't believe she just ate it like that." Purple-hair girl chuckled. "You think she's gonna call the HOA now?" The Nirvana shirt kid laughed. "Nah, she's probably gonna go ice her ego." And still, despite the roasting, no one posted anything. Not yet, anyway. Not while she was in sight. They may have recorded it, but something about the whole scene, the sudden fall, the weird vulnerability, the unexpected humility, made them hesitate. She had started off as just another Karen, loud and accusatory and dramatic. But by the time she left, she was something a little more complex. A woman who fell down, got back up, and maybe, just maybe, realized that the world doesn't revolve around her comfort. Maybe. It happened in slow motion, the kind of slow that seems to stretch a single second into a minute. Karen's arms flailed through the air like she was reaching for invisible railings. Her iced coffee, the one with extra whipped cream and caramel drizzle, launched from her hand and spun like a tiny caffeine-fueled meteor, trailing droplets as it arced gracefully through the sky. Her little dog, Pickles, barked in alarm and darted to the side, narrowly avoiding being tangled in her legs. The sound of her sandal catching the cracked concrete had a quiet finality to it, like a match striking just before a fire. Then, with a breathless thud, she hit the ground. The grass muffled the impact, but the silence afterward was louder than any scream. The teens stood frozen in place. One kid had his hand over his mouth. Another blinked rapidly, not quite believing what they'd just seen. The Bluetooth speaker still played soft background music, absurdly calm and disconnected from the chaos that had just unfolded. Karen didn't move at first. She lay on her side, sprawled awkwardly with one arm twisted beneath her and the other clutching at her now grassy purse. Her sunglasses had flown off and landed nearby, one lens smudged with dirt. Her visor was sitting at a crooked angle in the grass, and her phone, decorated with a bright pink glitter case, had landed screen down just a few inches from the edge of the sidewalk. Her pristine white capris were now streaked green, and her blouse was rumpled and untucked in the back. For several seconds, no one said a word. The teens didn't laugh right away. They didn't rush in either. They just waited, suspended in a weird blend of shock and awkward concern. Some still had their phones in hand, filming out of habit more than cruelty, but even they lowered them slightly, unsure what the appropriate next move was. Finally, Karen stirred. She gave a soft groan, a long, embarrassed sound more than one, of real pain. She rolled slowly onto her back and then pushed herself up to a seated position, wincing as she did. One hand reached up to check her hair, the other pawed at the grass to steady herself. "Oh no," one of the teens whispered under their breath, half laughing but not quite letting it out. Pickles, ever loyal, ran a small, frantic circle around her before sitting beside her hip, tail thumping uncertainly. The dog looked up at her as if to say, "What just happened, and why did you do that to me?" Karen glanced around and realized all eyes were still on her. Her face flushed a deep tomato red that had nothing to do with the heat. Her usual sense of superiority and sharp control seemed to vanish in an instant, leaving her looking not like an angry neighborhood watchdog, but more like a flustered ant who just slipped on her way to a barbecue. The girl with purple streaks in her hair finally broke the silence. Are you okay?" Karen tried to wave her off, brushing imaginary dirt from her blouse. "I'm fine," she mumbled, though her voice didn't carry its usual edge. She reached for her purse, then noticed the large wet stain where her iced coffee had landed squarely on the fabric. "Oh, for heaven's sake," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. The boy who'd offered her the Capri Sun earlier lowered his phone and stepped a little closer. "That sidewalk sucks. Seriously. We've all tripped there. They keep saying they're gonna fix it, but—" Karen didn't respond right away. She picked up her sunglasses, examined the smudge, and used the hem of her blouse to clean it. She looked more deflated than hurt, her earlier righteous fury now replaced by something that looked suspiciously like shame. Another teen, a girl with a nose ring and black nail polish, walked over and extended her hand. "Here, let me help you up." Karen hesitated, then accepted. She let the girl pull her to her feet, wobbled for a moment, and steadied herself with a deep breath. Her sandals were slightly askew, and her ankle looked like it might have twisted a bit, but she wasn't limping. "Thanks," she said, brushing herself off. It came out stiff, like the word had been dragged from her by force, but it was still there. A thank you from Karen. One of the younger kids, maybe 13 or 14, handed her back her visor with a sheepish smile. "Here you go." She took it and nodded. "Thank you," she said again, slightly more naturally this time. The group watched as she straightened her posture and did a quick damage check. Purse stained, coffee gone, pride very much dented. She glanced down at the sidewalk crack that had caused her fall and muttered, "They really should do something about that." Her tone was quieter, less accusatory, and more human. The teens exchanged glances, unsure whether to laugh or stay solemn. Eventually, someone couldn't help it. The boy with the Nirvana shirt let out a short laugh, then quickly tried to stifle it. Karen looked at him, her eyebrows raised but not angry. "Just tired." "Sorry," he said with a shrug. It was kind of the perfect slapstick moment." Karen didn't scold him. She just shook her head slowly and sighed. "I guess it was a little ridiculous." That opened the floodgates. A few of the kids chuckled. Not meanly, just honestly. The tension that had gripped the skate park only minutes earlier had completely dissolved. Karen had yelled, threatened, and lectured, but then she'd fallen, and for a brief moment, the balance shifted. She was no longer the antagonist. She was just another person having a very, very bad Monday. She reached down and scooped up Pickles, holding the dog like a small child. Pickles seemed just as eager to leave the scene as she was. The girl with the nose ring pointed at the spilled coffee and offered, "Want us to grab you a napkin or something?" Karen looked at the puddle of caramel-streaked ice and shook her head. "It's fine. I'll manage." Then, after a pause, she looked at the group as a whole. "You kids really aren't as terrible as I thought," she said quietly. More to herself than to them. Still noisy, but maybe not menaces. The group smiled, a few offering casual nods. It was the closest thing they'd get to an apology, and to be fair, it was more than they expected. Karen turned and started making her way back up the path. Her gait was slower now, careful. Her sandals clipped unevenly, and she held Pickles like a protective charm. As she walked away, she didn't yell. She didn't huff or puff or threaten to call anyone. She just walked. Once she was out of earshot, the teens finally let themselves breathe. That was something, one said. "Dude, she did a full-on cartoon fall," said another, grinning. "I legit thought she was gonna go full Karenzilla, but then she, became a person." The kid with the Capri Sun watched her silhouette disappear into the trees. "She fell harder than any of us ever have. That crack has a kill count now." And for a long while after she left, no one even skated. They just sat on the curb, sipping drinks, letting the moment settle like summer heat hanging in the air. It was almost an hour after Karen's spectacular sidewalk incident, and the teens were still lounging in the same spot, though now the energy had shifted completely. No one was filming anymore. The Bluetooth speaker had gone silent, and most of the group was sprawled out on the grass, skateboards discarded beside them like forgotten tools. A soft breeze blew through the park, rustling the leaves, and the golden hour sun was starting to drape everything in that mellow, hazy light that makes even cracked sidewalks look poetic. They were still talking about it, of course. "Dude, I swear, I thought she was gonna pull out pepper spray or something when she stormed over," said the boy in the Nirvana shirt, chewing on a piece of grass. She had that wild, "I've had it" energy, you know. The purple-haired girl, now lying flat on her back and using her board as a pillow, laughed. "She said we were gonna crack open our skulls and ruin her summer, like she owns the season. She said we were out here trying to commit homicide. By Ollie," another added to scattered chuckles. "But it wasn't mean. It could have been. A different group of kids, or even the same ones on a different day, might have posted the videos already, might have turned Karen into another viral, angry lady meltdown meme. They had the footage, multiple angles even. The fall had been cinematic, but none of them had uploaded it yet. Something about the way she got up had stuck with them. Not just the fall, but the way she accepted help. The way she muttered that they weren't as terrible as she thought. It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was something. "So what happens now?" the younger kid with the overlarge helmet asked. "Do we expect her to show up again tomorrow with a whistle and a list of park regulations?" The purple-haired girl shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe she won't come back. Or maybe she'll just give us the stink eye from a distance. You think she learned something?" The Nirvana shirt kid asked, rolling over onto his stomach, chin resting on his folded arms. "Like real character development or just momentary embarrassment?" "She learned gravity's undefeated," someone quipped. Another wave of laughter, easy and warm this time. The sun dipped lower, and for a minute, no one said anything. They just lay there, listening to the breeze and the distant sound of a dog barking in the next block over. Then came the sound of footsteps, sharp, deliberate ones, approaching along the path. Heads turned, cautious at first, and then To everyone's surprise, Karen appeared again. This time, she wasn't marching like a general storming into battle. She walked slowly, carefully, with Pickles trotting beside her on a new, retractable leash. Her white pants had been replaced with dark jeans, and she'd swapped the visor for a wide-brimmed sun hat. More notably, she was holding 2 plastic grocery bags. The teens exchanged looks. No one moved, no one spoke. Karen stopped a few feet away, looking slightly out of place but oddly calm. Her eyes swept over the group and she cleared her throat. "Don't worry," she said. "I'm not here to yell." That got their attention. Purple Hair sat up a little straighter. Karen held up one of the bags and gave a small, awkward smile. "I brought snacks." A stunned silence. One of the teens sat up, squinting, like maybe the heat was making them hallucinate. I figured, I made a bit of a fool of myself earlier, and maybe I came off a little harsh. "A little?" someone muttered, not unkindly. Karen ignored it, digging into the bag. "I have chips, cookies, and some juice boxes. I know it's not energy drinks or whatever you usually have, but it's what I had on hand." Still, no one moved. She shifted her weight, clearly uncomfortable. "Look, I'm not great at this. I was angry and stressed, and I took it out on you. That wasn't fair. You're just kids trying to enjoy the summer, and I acted like you were criminals." One of the boys finally stood slowly. "So, this is like a peace offering?" Karen nodded. "Exactly." He looked around at his friends. "Should we let her sit with us?" Purple Hair nodded. "Let's be real, she's already fallen into our lives once." That broke the tension. Laughter erupted again, and Karen cracked a genuine smile. She stepped forward and awkwardly handed off the snack bags, then lowered herself gingerly onto the grass. She didn't try to join their circle exactly, just sat close enough to show she wasn't afraid of them anymore. Pickles immediately lay down beside her, panting happily. For a few minutes, the teens rummaged through the snacks. Someone passed Karen a juice box, which she accepted with a smirk. "Haven't had one of these since my son was in middle school." They chatted, a little hesitantly at first, then more openly. Karen told them how she used to roller skate in this same park when she was their age. The teens told her about their favorite skate tricks and the best spots around town. They teased each other, joked, and, maybe more importantly, listened. The kid with the headphones around his neck eventually asked, "So, you still think we're a threat to the neighborhood?" Karen sighed, looking up at the sky. "I think I was scared. Not of you exactly, just of things changing, of not understanding the way kids are now, of feeling left out, I guess." There was a pause. "We get that," the purple-haired girl said. "We kind of feel the same way about adults sometimes." And just like that, the invisible line between them started to blur. As the sky deepened into orange and purple, the group stayed together, talking and laughing like old neighbors instead of opposing forces. Karen didn't try to take over the conversation. She just existed among them, no longer trying to fix or scold or supervise, just present. Eventually, someone pulled out a phone and said, "Hey, so that video?" Karen tensed slightly. The kid smiled. "We're deleting it. No one's gonna post it." Karen looked surprised, her mouth opening just slightly. "You don't have to do that." "We want to," he said. "Today turned out better than it started. Doesn't need a viral ending." Karen didn't say anything. She just nodded, a quiet, thankful kind of nod. The kind that doesn't need more words. And so, as the stars began to emerge and the sound of cicadas filled the air, Karen and the skateboarders sat under the trees. No longer enemies, no longer strangers, just people sharing snacks, stories, and a summer evening. Sometimes the fall is the beginning of the connection.